Good evening everybody, welcome to my weekly Facebook Live. Thanks so much to everyone who's said they'll join this evening. I hope you're all having a very good week. It's been lovely here that the sun's been shining. I've had a little bit of time in my craft room this week, but it's never enough. I'm hoping to get some over the weekend. So tonight we are going to be doing a little bit of fancy folding. Fancy folding is a fab term for anything that's folded a little bit differently. So I'm going to show you how to make these really cute little diagonal boxes. There's a couple here that I've made already. For those that saw earlier, I did add on the things that you'll need tonight. So we'll make the box first, but I'll just show you how it works. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to make this lovely easel card using the dino dies. Okay, so an easel card looks like this. It's really hard to show on film. You've got that lovely easel stand, and again I've used the dinosaurs. So we'll do that one last. We'll start with the box. Evening Trudy and Baz, thanks so much for joining. So this is the box here. It's been cased by a lady in America. I saw it on Pinterest yesterday and just loved it, so I thought I'd give it a go. And actually they're really simple to put together. So the idea is the box opens like this. So you have one piece, two piece, and then you have your little box like so. They're big enough, you could probably get a few chocolates in there, a few candles maybe, but they're really, really sweet, aren't they? So I've made one here with the dressed up papers, and I've coloured in this lovely lipstick. And then this one here has been made with the, it starts with Art Suite, which is actually retiring. And I've used a little bit of Floaty Flamingo for the base as well. So they're really fun, really cute party favours. And I'm going to, you don't need much at all to make them. So let's get cracking. So I'm just popping my bows back on. So what we will need, just try putting this back on for us. Okay, so that's that done. So we have two pieces of designer series paper. Oh, I'm glad you like them, Becca. Thanks so much. So we have two pieces of designer series paper, or DSP as it's sometimes known. As it's shortened to. Now these measure 5 3/4 inches by 3 3/8, and you need two. So actually you can get two boxes out of a 12 by 12 sheet and a little bit spare. So you need two pieces of those, and then you need a piece of coordinating cardstock, any colour you like. I've chosen lovely lipstick because it goes in really nicely with this DSP, and this measures 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. Okay, so to start putting this together, we need our scorer. Now I've chosen to use the scorer on my trimmer, so you can just see my light there. Just changing that slightly. Evening, Mum. So I've chosen to use my scorer. So what we'll build first is we will build our base. So you need your piece of cardstock. Remember, 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And I'm really sorry to those that don't like inches, but we are going to be using 16ths tonight. So on your trimmer or scorer, we're going to use the very last line before the 1 inch. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to line it up at 15/16. Actually, I'm going to use this side. So line it up there and score all the way down, and you're going to do this on all 4 of your sides. So 15/16 all the way round. Just like so. And this is a really simple way to make the base of any box. So there is our basic measurements for our base. All we're going to do is we're going to burnish these sides really nicely. So by burnish we mean just make sure that they are real crisp folds. You might want to use a bone folder. So just going around all 4 sides now. Okay, so you have your, you see that? Is the camera picking up those lines there? That's better. It's picking up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I find it easier to work on this side. I'm going to I'm going to cut with my scissors all the way up here to this score line and there. So I'm going to cut on the score line there like so, and then I'm going to add a little indent on the tab like so. I find this makes it a lot neater when you come to put your box together. Okay, so just pulling out a little bit of that there, and then you're going to turn it 180 degrees round and do the same on the other side. So like so and like so. So on the score line, and then just cut into that tab. So there we have our box. What we do is we fold those corners in, and then we create it like that. So what you're going to do, I'm going to use some snail. This is a permanent adhesive that Stampin' Up currently offer. It is going to be retiring at the end of this catalogue, and we're going to be getting something new called Seal. Very excited to show you about Seal. For those of you that have got your catalogues already, if you're demonstrators, then I'm sure you would have seen the lovely Seal. If not, you will hear a lot more about it, I'm sure, as the catalogues start to come out to customers. So all we're doing is we are folding in, and we're lining this, the edge up there. So the reason we've cut in there is it just makes it a little bit easier to get a really straight edge. Okay, you can do this with wet glue if you wanted to, but just make sure to be quite precise, and less is more with wet glue. You don't want to end up in a bit of a sticky situation. So there we have the base of our box, so we can put that to one side, we don't need that now. So now we are going to use our DSP to create our lid. So because we have, and this is where you need to go really careful, if you've chosen a piece of DSP that is directional, which this one is because it's stripes, you need to make sure that you do the folds on the opposite, the scores on the opposite side. So if we do the first one, so we're going to pop it in our trimmer, so it's lengthways, and we're going to line it up at 1 inch. So I'm lining up over here, and we're going to score top to bottom. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lay it in so it is landscape, so lengthways, and you're going to line it up at 2 3/8. So 1, 2, 3, and score. And then you're going to flip it all the way round and do the same from the other end. So we're going to score at 2 3/8 from the other end. Okay. So for the second piece, so this is our bottom of our box. So we want to make sure, actually I haven't got directional paper, my paper is the same way, so we're okay. But what I would mean is if you had directional paper, you would need to do the 1 inch score line so that it's on that edge. Okay, so we're going to line this up at 1 inch. So the score lines are exactly the same measurements on both pieces, but just watch out for that directional paper. And then we're going for 2 3/8 from either end, and 1, 2, 3/8 from that end. Okay, and that's our measurements. So what we can now do is we can start folding. So we're going to fold and make sure our score lines are nice and crisp. So there we have the basis of our box, but what we need to do is we need to create this diagonal line. So to do this, we're going to take this corner all the way over to where our score lines meet. Okay, so you can just make sure that that's butted up against that edge. Can you see that? score, and then the same goes for this one. So just make sure that that butts up against your score line. So then what we have now, this will become the base, sorry, the corner of our box, like so. Oh, I'm out of camera, there you are. So to create the close fixture, we're going to do what we did with the bottom of the box. We're going to cut along the score line all the way up to there, and the same there, and then like we did with the box, we're just going to cut into this tab like so. Okay, so then what we do now, we can now stick this down like so. So you tuck your little tab in. I'm going to put some glue on there, but before we do that we need to stick this down. I've just remembered, getting ahead of myself, so I'm just going to make sure this gets stuck down. So you can use wet glue for this, but again, just make sure you're not too heavy handed with it. You don't want to end up with lots of glue marks. So now I've done that, I can now build my box. So now that one gets stuck to there, and just line this edge up here with the bottom of your score line, and then this one is going to go across like that. So we're going to put glue on this tab here. So there we have the first part of our lid, like so. Okay, and then for the last, we're going to repeat exactly the same thing that we did with the first piece of DSP. I'm just making sure those score lines are nice and crisp, and then we're going to tuck these tabs over to our score line, making sure they butt up against that edge, and the same with this way. Okay, and glue them down. Let's not forget that bit. Okay, so there we have our two folds like so, and then add in a couple of little paper snips, so cutting on the line and then tabbing in, and these just make it a lot easier and neater when you're putting your box together. Now before we stick this one down, we need to check that this lines up. So that looks a bit different, so we're going to turn that over. So when I have it that side, the lines go in the opposite direction, so all we're going to do is flip it completely over, and there we have our lines going in the same direction. So we know this is the top because our join is here. Can you see that's just the edge of the paper? So we know this is our top. So when we stick this down, we need to make sure that you can't see the edge of the paper. So this is a crease rather than an edge. Okay, so we know this bit's got to be stuck on last. So for this, we're going to add a bit of glue. Snail is getting stuck now. My snail doesn't want to work. I think I'm nearly out of snail. I am out of snail. So we want to make sure that this one is stuck first. I'm just going to get a bit of wet glue. And then this one here is the one that we want to stick down on top. So it just makes it a little bit neater, and it hides all those joins. Okay. Just hold that for a second to make sure that is stuck in place. So there we have the lid of our box. So that just slides on like so. I really like that paper, it's really cute, isn't it? Right, so now we have the lid of our box, we can decorate it. So what we need, or what I'm going to use this lovely Starburst punch. This one is also retiring. Sad, very sad that this one's going. It's probably my most used punch. So I've got some scrap of lovely lipstick, which is the same colour what I've used for the bottom. And I've just cut out a very cute little punch there. And we need, I'm going to be using, my paper is on my desk over here. So this is the paper I'm going to use. This paper is also retiring, so I'm going to cut out a lovely little dinosaur. Now there are dies that go with this big dinosaur paper, which I'll use later, but there aren't dies for this one, so we're going to be doing a little bit of fussy cutting, and I'm going to use this little chap here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into this DSP. So we'll just quickly fussy cut him out. I think these boxes look really cute no matter how they're decorated. And we're not going to be doing too much to it at all. This paper has been really, really popular since we've had it. We've had it for a year now. And I think this may be my 3rd or 4th pack. It's such fun. This also is retiring, so this will be finishing in the end of May. You can still get hold of it, it's on the retiring list. So if this is one of your favourite sets, you can still purchase it. We are starting to see things sell out now, so I would get in there sooner rather than later. I know some of the card kits have sold out already. They were a real bargain. So there we have our cute little dinosaur. So we will stick him on there. Emily's favourite animal. It is. It's my youngest daughter's favourite animal. She loves it. So I'm going to use this stamp set, which is Delightful Day. I've used this particular sentiment on the card I'm doing later. So we're going to use just a little something for you, which is up here. Where are you? Here you are. And I'm just going to grab my 2-inch circle punch. Okay, so we're going to just pop our sentiment on a block, and we will stamp that onto a piece of white. I'm going to stamp that with Memento. So, should we do it in Memento or should we do it in black? Let's do it in Memento. Let's give it a bit of a different look. We're going to do some embossing on the next card, so you'll get to see that there. So we'll just stamp our just a little something for you. And then we can take our 2-inch circle punch and punch that out like so. I always prefer to stamp before I punch, just find I can see it a lot better. So just a little something for you, and then this can be attached to our Starburst shape. And then when we put this onto our box, we want to attach it just with one side. So what we're going to do is just going to do it by eye rather than measuring. I'm going to do this with dimensionals, which I thought I picked up, but surprise, surprise, I haven't. One day I'll be really organised, won't I? Here we go. Well, they're not on my desk, so I don't know what I've done with them. So what we're going to do, this is now dried, so we can, I'm going to attach it to the top part. Actually, I'm going to have that as the top. And I'm just going to eyeball it roughly. That's fine. So we can attach that like so, and then we can put our dinosaur on. I'm just going to put him on about there. So we'll just use a little bit of wet glue to do that. So there we have our little diagonal lidded treat box. And then to finish, we're just going to tie some ribbon round. And I am using some ruched ribbon, and it's in Daffodil Delight. I didn't have any lovely lipstick, so we're going with Daffodil Delight. And we're just going to tie this round. You don't want to stick this down because you want it needs to come off to open the box. So I'm just going to quickly tie a little bow. If my fingers will let me, of course. So because this box is quite soft, you can actually take the bow off without untying it to open the box, which I like the sound of. I'll just trim off that end. So there we have our little diagonal opening box with a bit of ribbon and the really cute little sentiment on the top. So there we have our three. Slightly different with this one, I've not embossed. The reason I've not embossed is we've got a bit of embossing going on later. And I think they're really cute. They're really fun. They're not very big, so they're ideal for just sending a little treat to someone or having as a table offering or just for fun, really. So they'd be great for a swap if we were going to on stage as a demonstrator, which is our annual get-together. But obviously because of COVID, it's not happening. So there is our diagonal treat box. I will put all the measurements on my blog for you after this. I hope some of you have managed to craft along with me. I'm really excited to see if anyone has actually done that. So I'll pop those over there, and we're going to make an easel card now. And I'm carrying on with the same theme. We're using the Dino, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's called Dino Raw Designer Series paper, which is really super fun. So this card opens like so. These are really fun cards to send out. I did used to send out instructions how to open, how to actually fold them. I've seen them stood up like that before. So they're quite cute. So we're going to put that together. And I'm using some more lovely lipstick. I'm trying to use as much of this colour as I can before it retires at the end of May, which isn't very far away, is it? So what we have a card base, which is a tent fold, and how we're going to do this is to create this mechanism. We're going to actually score the front of our card base. So we know this measures roughly 15 centimetres, actually 14.9, but half of 14.9 is not a real measurement, so we're going to do half of 15, which is 7.5 centimetres. So we're just going to add that to our trimmer and score, and that's the only thing you need your scorer for. So then fold this over and make sure it's a real crisp fold, and do the same with your top. So we know that the card front measures 10.5 centimetres by 14.5. So I have here another piece of lovely lipstick measuring just that, and the idea is that you attach it just with this area here that we folded. Okay, but we're going to do some stamping first. So I went to use this DSP tonight and realised that on Tuesday I lent the stamps to one of my downlines. So I found, not this one, I have found these lovely stamps, which are part of this So Sentimental stamp set. So the little bits of confetti here. So what I've done is I've added them to my block. I've just pushed them really close together so we can stamp them both at the same time. And what we're going to do is we're going to stamp this with a lovely lipstick. So the colour that matches the card. And this is a great technique for just adding a little bit something extra to your plain background. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this randomly all across my card front. And all I'm doing is I'm turning the cardstock so that it doesn't look uniform. We want it to feel quite random, and we want to fill in those spaces. Okay. This is a great way of creating your own patterns, and it's lovely to see the colour on colour. So we're using the same shade of colour. I love this. I'm just going around and filling up all those gaps, going off the edge as well. I thought this was quite a good match for the DSP. And then we don't need to worry too much about that centre, because we are going to pop our DSP on there. So we're done with our stamping, and that looks quite sweet just like that actually. Now, what do we have? We have a piece of the Dino Raw paper that measures 3 inches by 3 inches, and I'm going to back that onto a piece of Whisper White, and this is just 1/4 of an inch bigger. So this is 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, so we can add these two together. Hi Tara, thanks for joining us. I hope you're okay. Tara is another Stampin' Up! Demonstrator who is very, very talented. Okay, so that is our little base layer, and that is going to go towards the top of the card like so. So we can add that on as well. Okay, so this is going on flat. So there we have the background of our card. Now we can layer this on now. Hi Denise, thank you for joining us. We're just putting together an easel card. So we've got our card base there with our mechanism, and we're getting ready to attach this to the mechanism. So we're going to attach that to this piece here. So what I do for this, you can use double-sided tape if you want to. I am using some Tombow, so I'm adding the glue at the bottom of there and at the top of that folded area, and then we're going to carefully layer that together. So we're just matching up all those edges and then just pushing down really carefully. So then now we know that that card is going to stand up like so. So what we need to do now is we need to create this little area. So what I've done is I have cut out some DSP. Now I have just used my trimmer, and all I've done is I have cut out an area between these two lines here. So you've got this lovely little section, so I have just cut that little section out. Okay. Oh, Denise, you're asking what colour is it? So this colour is Lovely Lipstick. It's a real lovely pinky red colour, and it's part of our 2018 to 20 in colour collection. So sadly that means it is retiring at the end of May, which means you won't be able to get it after then, but it is lovely. So now we need to attach this to our card. So I need to work out roughly how big this is, so then I can work out how big my layer needs to be underneath it. So I'm just going to measure this with my trimmer, if I can open it. So this measures 1 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to cut a piece that is 1/4 of an inch bigger, so I want to do 1 3/8. So I've got 1, 2, 3. And then our card is 10.5 centimetres wide, so we'll just cut that down. So this is the piece of white that we need. So we're going to stand our card up, and think about where it naturally falls. And then that is where we're going to add that piece of white. Okay, so you have probably about an inch gap there. And then this is going to be attached flat. So what we're doing is we're trying to stop that card from falling down. We want it to stand up. Okay, and then we can go in now with our DSP. Now that's a bit longer, so I'm going to trim this down so it is 10.5 as well. So then we can now add this to our card. So we want to just raise it up a little bit. So for that we're going to use some dimensionals. You want it to be really tough to fall down. So that's why we're raising these up. Just taking off the backs. It. So now when we stand that up, that stands really, really nicely. So this level here is stopping that from closing. It still looks lovely when it's closed, but that really does stop it from falling down. So now to decorate our card, I've got some basic black card, and I am using this die here, which is from one of the poppy sets. It's a really nice embossed die. Can you see that? It's got a bit of embossing there. But before we do that, we want to stamp our sentiment. So I'm going to do a little bit of embossing. And for that, I need my embossing buddy. So this embossing buddy is filled with a powder. So you just rub it across your cardstock. And what it does is it just takes all the static off the card so that you get a really clean emboss. What do I do with my sentiment? 2 seconds. The sentiment isn't in my box, which means it should be over here. What I do is I put everything in a box that I'm going to need. Oh, it's right in front of me. It's one of those days today. So we're going to use a Versamark, which is a sticky ink pad. So we'll stamp our little sentiment to start with. I'm going to stamp that in the middle. Push down nice and firmly. So you can just about, can you see that in the light? Just about see that on your card. And then we're going to use some white embossing powder. I'm just going to take that in a little bit more. Just make sure you get a really good coverage. So that's picked up the powder. Close the lid before I knock that flying. And we're going to use our heat tool to just set that. So this is the sound of the hairdryer. And we're going to set that until it goes really shining. It's starting to go now. And you see that's just getting brighter, which means it's setting. So that looks really lovely. So I'm really pleased with that. That's a really nice clean embossing. So you can see that that has gone nice and shiny. And now what we can do is we can line up our die and get it exactly where we want it. Because this die has got some embossing on it, I find it easier to stamp before you cut. So I'm just going to use a little bit of washi tape to make sure that stays in place. And I'm leaving that over to one side because we want to make sure we have room for our dinosaur. So I'm just going to run that through my Big Shot, which is here next to me on my trolley. I'm just rolling it through. bring that back in. So let's cut this out. So there we have our lovely sentiment now on a die cut shape. I'll go back in there. And then now we can stick this onto our card. So this die is just a little bit bigger than our DSP, so I'm going to make sure that that just overhangs a little bit there. Okay, and we're going to pop this on with some dimensionals. There's lots of different height on this card, which is really lovely. This is probably my go-to fancy fold card. Always has a nice wow effect when people open them, and they look lovely when they're stood up as well. Still got my dimensionals there. So we're just going to pop that roughly there. And this DSP is great, where it's got lines you can get a really good, it really lines up nicely. So there we have our banner, and now to cut out our dinosaur. So we have on the box, I have no idea what dinosaur that is. Is it a Diplodocus maybe? Who knows? We've got the lovely yellow dinosaur with the long neck, so I'm going to go for the lovely yellow dinosaur with the long neck from this DSP. So now we have a card and matching box, which is a really fun little gift. So there are dies that go with this paper that cut it out. However, they are currently at my downline's house, as she borrowed them to make some cards for her nephews. Great nephews. Nephews? I think they're her nephews. She'll kill me now. Right, so we're just going to quickly trim around this dinosaur. Not like that. Okay, concentrating now. These are such happy little characters. Just what we need with everything going on in the world. Just trimming around his little tail. This is the tricky bit. I must not cut his tail off. Cut around his little legs, don't cut them off. Okay. So there we have our fussy cut dinosaur. And just clear our desk. We're going to just pop him onto our card like so. So because this label has been added with dimensionals, we're going to pop a dimensional underneath his body, so he will stick to this DSP here. And I'm going to put a little bit down here on his tail. So use one of these smaller pieces, just pop that there, and then we can add a little bit of wet glue to his head to make sure he is all stuck down, and then just pop him where you want him. It'd help if we took the back of the dimensional off, wouldn't it? Okay, so we want him about there. So there he is. I think that's a really lovely card, even if it was just a normal folded card. That's a really sweet little card to send someone. Wishing you a delightful birthday. I love it. And Eva, I chose the sentiment because the design around the sentiment kind of goes with the DSP, and it goes with the confetti on the back we've stamped on the base. So there we have our completed card. All we need to do now is just add a little piece of white in there so that there's an area to write on when we send this card. So again, I'm going to eyeball this roughly. This is just a piece of scrap that I have, and I'm going to trim that down to just cut that off. So that is about 7.5 centimetres. So it's not a great area to write on, but when you pop that in there, it fits in quite nicely. Okay, so this is, get the measurement across for you. My grid paper's upside down, my measurement's up here. So that is 9.5 centimetres, and we've just trimmed that down to 7.5 centimetres. Okay, so there we have our area to write on in our card. So there we have finished this evening. We have done a fancy fold easel card using some lovely lipstick paper. We've used the confetti stamp out of the So Sentimental stamp set. We've used this one and this one. All I've done is I've jutted them up against each other so that we stamp it all at once. And I've stamped that randomly all over the card. We've added in a layer of Whisper White that is 3¼ inches by 3¼ inches. Apologies to mix centimetres and inches. And then we have our DSP, which comes from the Dino Raw suite, and that is 3 inches by 3 inches. We've added this lovely label that we've stamped the sentiment from the Delightful Day stamp set, this one here. So this is the sentiment we've used. We've embossed that with white embossing powder on black cardstock, and then we've cut it out with this lovely die from one of the poppy sets. We fussy cut a dinosaur out and we've added him on, and then we've created our little easel like so. So that's our finished card for this evening. Before we did the card, we made this lovely little diagonal box. So now we have a matching box and card to send to someone special. This, if you take the ribbon off, I will show you. So the ribbon just pulls up because the box is quite pliable, and then it opens like so. So we've got our little box with our diagonal folded lid. So that's me finished for this evening. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined in tonight. It's been lovely to craft along with you. All of these items will be on my blog in about half an hour's time, so all the measurements and all the products that I've used. I've used a lot of retiring product, so some of it may not be available after, or it won't be available after May. You can go on and grab a bargain from my online store. Remember to use the Hostess Code and you will get a free gift and handmade card from me in June. Keep an eye out on my Facebook page over the next few days. I'm going to be doing a little bank holiday special something, so tune in over the weekend, and I hope you'll all keep safe and well, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again everyone, take care, bye.